Everybody, and we're starting with a 15 minutes public session, don't we?
We are.
Yes.
When's on the agenda? When is on the agenda?
Yes, so we are starting with item tennis courts.
No, sorry, Chair, that's not. Public session is normal. I don't think we have any, but no, we don't.
Oh, we don't have, oh, I see, okay. Sorry, I got confused there. In which case, we move straight to the election of chair. I would like to propose Councillor Davies as chair.
I'd second that.
Okay, and, are there any other proposals? No, in that case, let's go for a vote. Everybody in favour? And that appears to be unanimous. Okay, in that case, let's see.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
You're going to take that mallet away.
Put it back.
Striking distance, isn't
Yeah, you've got to behave yourself.
Thank you, everybody. Item 2 on the agenda is election of vice chair. We have any proposals for that?
I'd like to propose Councillor Willett, please.
Thank you. We have a seconder for that. Do we have any other proposals? Councillor Ralph.
I propose Councillor Ahmed.
Do we have a seconder?
it?
Thank you. So as we only have one proposal and seconder, the councillor, no, one proposal and seconder, which is for Councillor Ahmed. We have no seconder for with it. We vote on Councillor Ahmed as vice chair of this piece. Those in favour? Unanimous. Thank you very much. Thank you, Marina. Item 3, apologies for absence. To be Councillor Gavin. Thank you very much. Do we accept her apology?
Yeah.
Declarations of interest, personal prejudicial interest.
This meeting.
Thank you very much. And we received the full minutes of the Environment Committee held on the 17th of April and received by the full council on the 22nd of May.
Received.
Thank you. Okay, item 6. Terms of reference. To note the terms of reference for the Environment Committee as agreed by the full council.
Noted.
Yeah, no,
Thank you.
both we agreed them as noted because they were
Well, they were agreed, weren't they, already?
no changes.
So item 7, Chandos Park Tennis Club proposal to receive a presentation from Wayne Gibbard from Buckingham Tennis Club. So over to you, Wayne.
Thank you. Thanks for making space in the agenda and so quickly as well. I guess firstly, from my perspective, I'm here on behalf of the chairman of the club, which is Mark Cossack. Unfortunately, he can't attend tonight because he's away on business. So I'm his delegate here at his behest. It was also my idea, so to be fair to Mark, he said, let's go. So, I'm sure are familiar with the tennis facilities we have in Chandos Park. So at the moment we've got 3 courts there, which are hard surface. We've got a membership locally of around about 100, just under. And Mark's picked up the chairmanship there about 6 months ago. He's very keen to kind of progress membership, develop the club, offer extended facilities locally. I think once we had the idea, I'll explain a little bit more in a moment. We were looking at ways in which we can increase participation in tennis, and particularly engagement with the club that we have locally. And there's a new sport, relatively new, certainly growing fast, probably the fastest growing sport in the world, which is paddle tennis. So paddle tennis is a form of tennis, and it's essentially a mix between squash and tennis. So it's played on a slightly smaller court, hard surface again, the net. But there's then a frame around the outside, like a perspex glass frame. So you're allowed to hit the ball, rebound off the back wall, and play in a more confined space. The speed of the ball, we play with a smaller racket, that's very thick and narrow. Can't move the racket as quick as you would do with Djokovic yesterday. And as a consequence of that, it enables the sport to be played across generations, across different capacities and skill levels. So it's a great leveler. And to put it, against another sport, it's a similar to sort of sport where you're able to participate multi-generation. So we looked at paddle tennis and the opportunity to put that as a facility alongside the club. We've had some fantastic support, and just to call out from Lee, he's been incredibly responsive. I'd just like to pass on personal thanks to him for coming engaged so quickly. And also from Joe at County Council, Joe Houston, where we've had some preliminary discussions. All of that, I have to say, has moved much more quickly than we were actually originally anticipating. So from the germ of an idea where we were thinking, actually, maybe we could look at this next year, actually it's been so responsive, we're now sat here tonight. What we're looking to do, there are a few options that we've been considering. Effectively, where we've got to are two options that we would like to propose. I guess from my perspective and behalf of the club is just to understand, so what do we do next from this? The club itself has got 3 courts, and there's a grass area, and there's a multi-use games facility next door. The grass space that sits between the mugger and the tennis court will fit 1 paddle court and 1 junior court. And there's some, we've also spoken to an arborist as well as the trees, and I'll explain a bit more about that. We've got the opportunity to put a paddle court and a junior court, effectively half the size, keeping that space. Speaking to Lee and to Joe, I think they're receptive and supportive of that idea to enable us to extend those facilities. And also speaking to Joe specifically, it looks as we'll be able to potentially access funds from 106 to support or at least contribute towards that proposal, which is important for us. The other option is perhaps a little bit more radical, where we actually extend beyond that area and use the space that the mugger sits in today. So effectively take that mugger away and relocate it to another area. That's what was chosen. The reason that we've looked at that as an option, which is more radical, is what we find is there's quite a lot of antisocial behaviour that arises from Chandos Park, and particularly for our club members when we play on Tuesday and Thursday evening. We find there can be times at which members are put off from attending social events because of the nature of some of the behaviour around Mugger Court. Additionally, we've spoken to our neighbours in Bourton Park, and they've had similar comments around some of the activity that happens around that area. It's anecdotal, I would say at the moment, albeit that we've registered some of those instances with police and council, but it is an issue for us in that area. As a consequence, we've looked to say, okay, if we were able to move into the mugger space and take that, what could we do? And a provision then could be to 3 paddle courts and potentially 2 junior courts as well. That would be the biggest facility within a long way. There's a facility currently public use down near High Wycombe that has 2 courts. And there are some privately held ones within David Wood, places like Bicester and Milton Keynes. So if we're able to develop into the mugger space and take the opportunity to go that far, it would be the class leading centre and would be a real asset, we feel, for the local community. Also, what we've done, we've looked at how we might use that space to, I'd say, improve engagement. We've looked at opportunities where we can provide a facility to university, so we bring the students into participation. And also because of the nature of paddle, we do see outreach opportunities with the schools as well to bring new generations through and using the facilities. Whilst we don't have the details there, we would expect to use those facilities, you know, as a community facility, albeit within the kind of confines of the club. So these social sessions to the club, but open activities perhaps to school. So certainly that's within our thinking. So I guess the purpose of me being here tonight, I think, was to introduce the idea to you to start with, to see how receptive you were to development of that area, and more particularly whether there is the opportunity to redevelop the Mugger itself. And then just take your feedback for how we progress or develop any further plans or any questions you have.
Thank you. Does anybody have any questions for me? That's all right.
Yeah, I'm very optimistic. It sounds good. One thing I always try and think about though is, assuming it is successful, let's be positive.
Yeah.
What about parking? Because you may well draw a lot of people outside, which necessarily brings cars in. One wonders how you dispose of them.
Yeah, that's a fair challenge. I think
It wasn't a challenge.
No, I think okay, I think it's a fair question. We are restricted clearly to the way that Chandos Road operates. The development we're looking at is intended to be for community. So whilst it would be leading facility in the area, possibly we don't really want it to go outside the community. It is for us.
Sure.
So to be perfectly honest, I don't have any opportunity to create infrastructure for parking or otherwise. We could look at the provision of providing bike stands. There's a lot of members that already can walk or cycle to the club. So I think if we're able to have a locker or a stand down there for that might improve the needs of that.
Thank you. We've got Councillor Ahmed and we've got Councillor Edonby.
Who owns the Mugger? We do.
Yeah.
So do you have any figures on how often that's used or how popular that is?
I should start from the office point of view. Obviously, Lee's had quite a number of conversations and has been out and measured things up at the tennis club. He did write a report on the first proposal, and then the tennis club have quite at the last moment brought the second proposal to us of moving the Mugger. At this time, this came out of the blue for the office. It hadn't been something that we were considering doing. No idea where we would relocate that to or how much the costing of that, which I expect is probably going to be in the hundreds of thousands. Anecdotally, the Mugger is pretty well used. We are looking at putting some additional lines in it to make it available for sort of netball lines, to make it friendly to other groups, so it's not just football, basketball. It's just something discussed in a later report. So I suppose my point is, from the office's point of view, this came quite late to us, and it isn't something that Lee and I were in a position to really support cost at the moment. It was the initial proposal was the one that we were looking at.
Okay.
And that's why you don't have a counter report from us on this, nothing writing to consider.
Thank you, Claire. Can I just ask one question? So you say it's for the community, we go ahead. You know, I inquired about tennis lessons once, and I would say for a lot of people, they're unaffordable. So is there anything that you're proposing to do to really make it for the community and not just those who can pay £40 per hour or something?
Yeah, so tennis lessons are provided by a professional coach.
Right.
They're not affiliated, but they're non-associated to the club itself. We provide the facilities, then the coach comes along and provides them. I completely sympathise because I've been through that journey as well, and they are expensive. The way in which the club operates at the moment is to return a small surplus into the funds through membership, which allows us to then sustain and do any remedial activity on the grounds as necessary. This is not for profit, clearly, but as a consequence of that, we're not able to subsidise lessons.
Right.
I think our useful provision of the amenity is really through provision of the land to either, or the courts rather, to schools or the university usage. That's kind of where we're thinking.
Okay.
Councillor Edonby.
Thank you. I'm not sure I'd be in favour of moving the mugger because it is incredibly popular. And, you know, we use it ourselves for the basketball sessions we put on in the summer. If that was an option, would that be something that you guys would pay for? Because we're precepted, so we wouldn't have the funds to move the mugger at all. And I can't imagine that being a very cheap option. So I certainly would be in favour of that. If, you know, there is land in between, like you said, between the courts and the mugger. If it could fit there, that just seems like the easier option.
And that was our first option. So you could give, you know, us moving at speed with this, that things were unwound much more quickly than we were expecting. We were able to speak to providers of the course more quickly. So this was not intended to be an ambush in terms of that. It was just another option that we considered when we spoke to one of the construction companies. So I think option one, the use of the land that sits there at the moment, to drop a junior court and an adult court in there, is an option for us. That's where we started. That gives us a foothold, if you like, to see how well it would be received.
Yeah.
I think just in terms of cost and speaking to some of that, approximately it's about 75,000 to put a turnkey solution in, and that'll provide a facility to enable people to access the court remotely, all of the walls, the hard standing and everything else. So when we start multiplying it up, it is literally in those numbers. So to build out, we're looking at £300,000 development thereabouts, and to relocate the mugger, clearly, yes, then the additional.
Yeah.
So our initiation of this discussion was around one more, and it's just through, you know, youthful enthusiasm to claim that we kind of got to this point.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Schaefer.
Who owns the land? Let's leave the mugger aside for the time being, because that might be a little bit too radical to fly at the moment, at least from where I'm sitting. But who owns the land in between? We own that. Okay, right. And yes. And did you say where you've looked for the funding for doing this? So you'd want us to provide the tennis club with the land, but you would aim to raise the money for the construction of the one paddle court and one junior court?
We would like to see Section 106 monies for the provision of the court. And we feel that's consistent with provision of leisure facilities, and particularly, like I say, around the way in which paddle is played, it is a multi-generational sport. So actually the provision there is much broader than perhaps facilities we have already. So we would seek 106 monies to support it.
Councillor Sturchbury.
Yeah, firstly, thank you for, I didn't know what it was, and now I know what it is. It's very important. I was interested that you'd had expressions of enthusiasm from Buckinghamshire Council on the Section 106. I'd like to explore a little bit about where and what they actually have suggested, because where it is, and I'll ask something else about how far that conversation's got.
So, as I say, we've moved at speed with this. So this was a germ of an idea around 4 weeks ago to me now being sat here. I've had a couple of discussions with Joe Easton, the Bucks County Council, really to say, how do we start a process of accessing 106 monies? What is the nature of the provision that would be used for? And is there money available? So to all of those things, yes, there's money available, as I understand it in the pot. The kind of alignment to leisure facilities are there, and it would be something that Joe would be supportive of. Now, I think beyond that, I'd like to bring Joe into the discussion, because I understand there are some commitments in terms of when 106 monies are allocated. Joe is starting those conversations internally with the legal department at Bucks County Council. So that's really as far as I've got with the conversation. But to say there is the potential, you know, certainly there's an opportunity for us to progress that.
Well, thank you for that. I'm reassured that Joe's having discussions within the legal department at the moment. I'm very quite impressed that they're going on. Unfortunately, they haven't got down to the Buckinghamshire councillors yet, which isn't your fault. I also would wish to explore with them, because we've got a new development which is on stream, and some of the, I think we've got a section 106 list of things which are committed. So when some of those things are committed, yet specific projects, which is can't be, unless Joe advises us they can do that, which I don't think you can go somewhere else. So I think this is about a section 106 agreement that they're drafting, which we haven't been privy of, and they're not very good at talking to Buckingham Town Council about section 106 agreements. They seem to have a resistance to be able to talk to the council about it. They seem to have a resistance from what you said to be able to talk to local members about it, which is probably somewhere I'll go and ask some questions now. I think it's a good option. I think one of the things we have to explore is all options around this, and not dismiss it or kill it off, because there are aspirations and the town's growing and we need to find facilities for it. So I think wherever it goes, it needs to be provided at some point.
Yeah.
Whether it's in Chandos Park or in an additional piece of land that could be made available, or moving the mugger, all it has to be investigated and costed and whatever. So I think it's something we shouldn't make any decisions on, because we haven't got anything to make any decisions on. And I think that I would ask that we carry on the discussions, get as much information together as we can, then work to try to find ways, because the precept isn't going to be the natural way to doing this. It will have to be through a section 106 agreement. If Joe thinks he's got some money, I think I'm very interested to find where this money is, because we do need to do something, and there's a growing generation. And if it's a growing sport and they've got it in South Bucks, we should have it in North Bucks. And then they might drive here once in a while to come and have a look at the town. You never know. Especially if there's a league. Having played rugby against South Bucks a few times, there's a few things one needs to practice. But I don't think there's anything more I need to ask. But thank you for coming, and I asked through the chair that the office carry on the discussion so that we can get a little bit more detail around the uncertainties around it. But lastly, you stated that the university would be a main user of it. The university also is a landowner adjacent to the actual area of land. Has the university been involved in the conversation to ask whether they would be willing to make a portion of that land available for public use? Because it's just sat there at the moment. Yeah. And I haven't seen a great amount of public use since the football club vacated the area.
Huge piece of land.
And a huge piece of land. And now that would be something if they were only to give a small portion of land to it, and we're able to do that either in an agreement with the town council on a 100-year lease or something, or some means so that it was secured for the public for long term. Because I think it needs to be adjacent to where your present premises is, purely because of the necessity. So I think we need to, through our officers, which is the right way of doing it, explore those things with yourselves, so that when we come back, those untendered questions are either dismissed, answered. Because if the university is going to be a main player in using it, it seems logical that they might contribute. It doesn't sound like you need a large amount of land. You just need a portion of land capable enough to take this facility in. So I think we should be asking them that question.
Yeah, I mean, just to clarify, it's not to say they're going to be a main user. There may be a user in amongst the rest of the community. If it were by choice, it would be local schools, and particularly primary schools, actually the main users, because that provides the necessary feed into the club and access through the
school budgets aren't particularly robust at the moment.
No, and again, I think that's where we see a high amenity value, community value.
Yeah, I really understand with what you're saying. I'm just trying to open new avenues of conversation. Which should be explored.
I've got Councillor Hardy, please.
Yeah, I would just express I mean, I can see where you're going with the space of the tree. There are currently 3 park benches there in the and the mugger. And those park benches are used a lot by the people using the mugger. So whatever plans there would be, that we do.
Yeah.
Not just simply political.
Yeah.
Because whilst we may, sometimes, us people who are over 40, look on askance at young people, you know, gathering in groups and making lots of noise, they have an absolute right to do that. And I think we need plenty of spaces for the town of youngsters to get together, do what they want to do. And citizens, like the rest of us. And a delight in seeing that happen. So I think we need to be very careful with that. And I think, like Robert, I think it would be a great idea to try and, because it's a large chunk of land. They need the other end and they use the other end for their car parking, so that huge green space. It's just not used at the moment. I mean, maybe the newly formed, joined up football club might be trying to make it with that space again. But we also in the town council, as we mindful of other causes of attention, and not least the Buckingham hockey club, which is a nationally, renowned club that I know would like to have its space within the town, rather than shut up to the stone.
Yeah. Yeah.
So there are other people as well who are looking for their space, including people as well. In principle, I think it's great.
Yeah.
If you can bring, there's also another game that's a bit like tennis, isn't it? Anyone remember? Korfball? No, not korfball.
Pickleball.
Pickleball. It sounds really weird, I would say. But apparently it's all the rage in North America.
Yeah, it's very similar.
Very similar.
It is very similar. This is the kind of European derivative.
Is it?
Yeah.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
And therefore probably better. Yeah. Okay, but in principle, I think I support the idea, and obviously, if we, that space could well be used for something like this, and more people involved with physical activity and sport.
Thanks, John. We've fired quite a few questions at you.
Thank you.
I think moving on from this, if you can keep in touch with the office.
Yeah.
And they can keep us informed of the committee as to where things are going, look at whatever plans, look at affordability, etc. And then we'll see where we go.
Okay.
So thank you very much.
That's right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
you.
Thanks for coming.
We'll harness our plans and I'll come back with a bit of a solution for you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. You're very welcome to stay for the rest of the meeting if you wish. However,
But I have eaten all my biscuits.
Yeah, I can't share mine with you either.
okay, so we move on to next item, Chandos Park improvements, to receive a report from Lee.
Lee's on holidays and
Yeah.
his deputy was in there.
Okay.
So it's essentially a report on a section 106 application, which is now become available. So it's some, as you'll see from the report, 13,593 from the Oddfellow School development. So the wording of this particular agreement was for improvements to Chandos Park. So quite broad there, unlike some of the other agreements that have come our way, which are very specific to a particular activity or a particular piece of land, just as we've been discussing with Chandos Park. And now, when we knew that this was on the cards, it was the same sort of time that we were doing a user survey to Bourton Park, because nowadays, if you're applying for any funding, you have to not only have a good idea, but also have the public backing, because it's not just about our ideas, but also about the residents' one as well. So we launched the Chandos Park Improvement Survey. As you see from the report, around 6 weeks, it was actually really popular. I shouldn't be surprised about that. I mean, people are really invested in our public parks. So we had about 145 responses. You have to view this in the sense of who's going to be completing these surveys. So when we talk about the number in Chandos Park, you'll see there's a link in here that takes the full feedback report. Whilst the actual use of the mugger from our user survey might appear lower than people that use the park for walking, well, that's because the people that are completing the survey aren't necessarily 18 years old and using the mugger for football and basketball. But we know anecdotally that actually these are quite popular popular activities. So it needs to be viewed with that sort of a lens as well. So top 3 reasons for visiting the park: walking and jogging, playing with children and enjoying quiet time. 4 ratings, there was a few that were given to the range of play facilities. These are known issues that we discussed in the office: lack of arts and heritage features, and the control of undesirable activity like graffiti and antisocial behaviour, obviously things that we discuss around this table on a regular basis. So we had proposed some priorities for funding, and essentially the themes that emerged from this consultation were things such as improved play equipment. So we would see that as investing in play facilities for children aged between 2 and 7, because we have the castle structure that was the replacement from the one that was burnt out last summer. That's pretty much it. The Scorpion Swing, which is down the park, is a really underused piece of equipment that's reached the end of its life and constantly needs repair. It's got lots and lots of moving parts. It's quite expensive. And also the accessible roundabout. So it's a great roundabout. It's really popular, but we're forever having problems with the wet paw coming. And the latest thing that you can do is actually have contrasting colours with your wet paw. So therefore, it's much more accessible for people with visual impairments with accessing that piece of equipment. So that's something that we would love to do. The results from this consultation also talked about improving the sports and games facilities. So we were looking at the Mugger in Chandos Park, and which now doesn't have any lining in it whatsoever. And we were talking about incorporating and improving it to korfball lines, maybe hockey or netball. So accessing the sports that are really popular now. So addressing the sport local need. As I say, there's a full report for feedback that's linked there, which is on our website, and we've given you an approximate costings from various firms. These aren't final figures, these are more sort of approximates from what it would cost to address those sort of priorities. So reading from the report, we are just asking members to agree to proceed with the 106 application for the items of detail.
Yeah, it's not a big amount of money, about 14,000. It's not a big amount of money, and what I'd hope that we could nuance some way with that money to define where we could get a step forward with some of the problems that we've got, if possible. Because even replacing part of that equipment, £13,000, I shouldn't imagine would only go.
Let's break down.
Yeah, I'm really looking at that report. I've got it here. I've got them both open. So I'm just, they'll reply for the money, but I'm a bit nervous that we might not have enough unless we've got some other section 106s roundabout that we're not looking at tonight that would match some of it, because it doesn't seem a lot of money when you start doing the project to actually get anything done. And it's nice that we're actually going to get something out of the Oddfellows, or it's been such a pleasure for everyone when it's been built, and such a discussion point, let's say. So that's my concern there. I mean, it's not a criticism, it's just I think it's just such a small amount of money to do anything with.
It's not in the same region of Bourton Park, which we've obviously just dealt with.
Yeah.
But it would, as you can see, it would enable us to.
I'm not against it. I'm seriously not against it. I'm just concerned that it won't meet what we want.
John, and then
Yeah, I'm just intrigued what we're actually replacing the Scorpion Swing with. Because that it says £8,000. What's the replacement?
Still to be finalised. So there's a number of suppliers that we approach when we're doing any sort of play area replacements. And we have a site visit, sort of talk about, we would like something that would aim to the age group of age 2 to 7. We would ideally go for something that was maybe like a springer or a rocker, that sort of idea of movement, because we have those other play areas within that particular park. And then we ask them to give us ideas. The one piece of equipment that we have there already is sort of a castle, a medieval knights themed castle, which is slightly reflective of the old jail. So we'd like something that kind of tied in with that as well, but that had that sort of rocking movement discipline, I think. So yes, so the £8,000 is based on a particular sort of budget line, if you like, from across the board from our various suppliers. But in terms of what will actually be delivered, we will bring you the actual.
Okay. Thank you.
May I clarify something, Chair? I think just to say that at the moment, all we're asking is for permission to proceed with the 106 application. That £13,500 has to be spent on Chandos Park improvements, and we want to go and claim it. And this is basically our outline costs for what we think is the best spending on that. This isn't the finalised, this is absolutely what we're doing and the costings. This is just our rough. What we're suggesting, we go and get this money, and that's what we're going to tell county we're going to use it for.
That's very Jonathan.
Thank you. I'm happy to agree to this. It needs doing, and yeah, I welcome it.
Thank you, councillor Schaefer.
I was just going to say, I propose that we accept this recommendation.
Yeah.
And go to the vote on this. Yep.
Happy with that.
Okay, any those in favour of accepting this recommendation? Unanimous. Thank you very much. Okay. So next item is the climate action report. So,
Just the action.
Action report.
yeah, sorry, the action report, not climate action report. Is there anything in here that we need? Councillor Ralph?
At the last environment meeting, I suggested that we should have an action report information about the bridges in Bourton Park, because there's a fairly substantial amounts of money.
Yeah.
There seems to be very little apparent moving forward with it. And in fact, one of the bridges has deteriorated further in that time. And it's one of the questions I get asked most about is, what is going to happen? And I feel we should be on top of this perhaps a little bit more in a public sense. Maybe there's things happening behind the scenes, but I think we need to be up on tippy toe so that we can respond.
I'm sorry about that. It got left off. It shouldn't have been. We will make sure for the next action report.
You're forgiven.
Walk us through where we are.
So there's the two issues with the bridge. Obviously, we've got the ongoing repairs with the 4 bridges in Bourton Park. The two that are adjacent to each other at the car park end of the bridge. One is obviously, I hesitate to use the word condemned, but is at the end of its life and will be removed within the next sort of 12 months or so, which we are working on. We've got quotes from our contractors, and we should be bringing those to you to finalise possibly by the next Environment Committee.
Okay. So that is bridge number 1 to be repaired, to be kept for the longer term, isn't it? Let's call it the car park one,
Yes.
the one closest to.
Yeah, so the one closest to the car park will be the one that's repaired and kept.
Yes.
The other one is going to be the one that will be removed. And so that's the option that we have the budget for, and that we will be bringing to committee to decide. So the one that is to be repaired and replaced, we will also be relining the footpath. So when you come in through the kissing gate, so you just come to a dead end, so it'll be relined, and then so that's part of the overall proposal that we'll be bringing to committee to agree as well, because there's costs obviously.
So without being unkind, we're about 12 months away from completing that, give or take. And I'm not trying to hold you hard to it, but
No, but yes, we are, and we're working on getting.
thank you.
The other, sorry, just to clarify as well, the other bridge, things are progressing with that. Just had the invoice for the scaffolding to go up and push forward for that. So hopefully, Mr. Bridges, he's not called Mr. Bridges, is he? We call him Mr. Bridges. Jeff, but pushing on with that and then have that bridge open for you nice and as soon as possible. We will get that put back on the
Anybody else
agenda.
wants something about the bridges or Middleton? Robin?
Yeah, I'm just interested in 8, which is.
No, do anybody else want something about the bridges?
No, I didn't,
No.
and I thought you were moving on.
Right,
to 8.
so John's next then.
Yes, about the bridges.
Right, thank you.
Just a thought, and it's a bit left field, I appreciate that. The bridge that is no longer able to be repaired, could we turn it into some sort of feature? I don't know, cover it with flowers or plants, whatever, and make it something that people would look at and admire, and not use because it would be dangerous. that was the case, but is that feasible? I don't know.
Well, it's-
Rather than just taking it all together.
It's interesting, I mean, it's a huge lump of hardwood, it's tropical hardwood. So it is something that Lee and I have discussed in the office, because we will be paying a contractor to come in with a lift, lift it up, take it away, have it broken up. So we have had that conversation. What useful idea could you have for a huge, massive piece of bridge? What would you do to it? It's not in a great condition, so there is a bit of a health and safety nightmare to just leave something in a public park. Honestly, I'm not sure I could come up with something valuable. You had somebody come out with a chainsaw and carve something useful out of it. What would you do with the rest of it? There will be elements left, though. There will be the supports that are left behind, the bridge supports on either side of the bridge. There are options that we can look at for the infrastructure that will be left behind. But if you want to make a proposal,
Okay, I will do some investigation.
Okay, are we moving on from Bridget?
No, just going to say on Bridget. Just to say, I've been underneath it, John. It's a laminated structure, which is not solid, but it's laminated. The thing is, with the laminated structures, it was before we took it over, it had probably already started to perish because it wasn't looked after so well. So even though it's been looked after the best possible, the laminations are breaking apart. So it's very, you can't carve much with laminated wood, which is rotting. And one of the things we have to be careful about is how we actually dispose of that thereafter. So I think it needs some careful, because it's chemically treated wood, and leaving it in the park with the splinters and stuff just wouldn't work. If it was solid wood, I think we'd probably think about contacting people who done carving for us, but it isn't that type of wood. And I haven't used a chain, so I wouldn't be fussed about trying to carve something out of laminated wood with so many different grains going different ways. I think, regrettably, this is what the recommendations were, is where we are. But I do think that the use of the area when the wall's left there, they're not going to make much of a feature. So it needs to be returned back to a bank, really, because it would look quite stark in a park. So, but I do think we haven't got to the decision and moving it quite yet. So the discussions can carry on.
So John, if you want to have a think, any other members want to have a think and see if there's anything that is workable.
Please get in touch.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, from my point of view, it's dangerous. What we leave there has got to be safe, which means we've either got to barrier it off in a way that doesn't look an absolute state.
And if you put any sort of barrier or anything, it's an invitation for people to try and cross that barrier, isn't it? Yeah. And then we get safety. Yeah.
But I agree, John. I mean, it's a bit of it's a shame to not be able to come up with something more creative, but I know that Neil and Lee have talked about it. But ultimately, we need to leave something safe there behind.
John, you coming back on the bridge?
Well, briefly, and then another item after that. Can I do both?
Anybody else want to talk on the bridge? Okay, right.
Simple, maybe.
Yeah, and you get stuck on it.
I have another item as well.
I look forward to seeing.
I was just going to say, I can't recall there being a cliff or there's a point going down.
No, not sorry. Right,
Okay, so
let's go with John.
it's no May. As we've allowed to have a discussion about the bridges which aren't even on the agenda, no May. I'd like to request that we revisit that, because there was quite a lot of discussion on social media about it and about the town council's approach to that idea of leaving wildflowers to flourish during the weeks of May, not only on the parks that we look after that are ours, but also the bits that we contract to look after as well behind the Shire Council. I know it's been debated before, but it is growing in popularity. It's certainly something that's come from, like I say, on social media. And I think it behoves us to think again about whether we go for it. And I know there's any safety, there's anything else, you've got display, oncoming traffic, and so on, but that taken into account, I think we should be looking at it again.
Okay,
But
so
if we can do this
that's
more, please.
not currently on the action plan, unless I've missed
Well,
it.
nor was the bridges,
No, I know.
so I'm raising
Yeah,
it.
so can we get that put back on the action plan?
Can we put it on the agenda for the next meeting?
Absolutely, but on the agenda for the next meeting, we will report
Okay,
to you.
okay. Moving on with the action plan. Right.
Thank you,
Councillor
Chair.
Willis.
I've noticed the rent review of the Chandos Bowls Club and Tennis Club. Is there a meeting scheduled in as of yet with that? And on a second point, how is it going with the well, it's coming down the agenda, but I'm looking forward to hear the update on the railway common station route.
Okay, to take the two things at a time, yeah, we're in the process, we're talking to both clubs, there's not going to be anything massively controversial with the tennis club, and when Lee gets back, he's got a meeting booked in with the bowls club as well, so once we've done that, we will report back.
Excellent, thank you.
And the railway walk is on the agenda, Chair.
Yeah.
Okay. Do you have something? No.
Yeah, just item 826. Have we had any more correspondence with it? I met them originally, met officers from Buckinghamshire Council and took them up the road, because remember we had people come to us about it and we couldn't get any further forward with it. So then they agreed they were going to probably at some point consult the town council on where they were going to do it, because they've got to find a site to actually do the monitoring, which is crucial. Have they come back with the nitrodoxy site with us? Has there been any communication with the clerk on this?
The update I put in there is the update that I had from them about 3-4 weeks ago. I did email them before I put the agenda out and say, have you got anything further for me? And I have not had anything back yet. So as I do, I will obviously bring it to you.
I might go back to them for further chase there. I mean, I
They did say it's by the end of the month.
I'll leave it then. I'll leave it till sort of middle of July. And put it on my list of things to chase, because I do think we had quite an expression of concern here at the council. It was something that we had no ability to address. Yeah, members of the public came here to talk to us about it, so we have moved it forward. But it's quite where they put the monitoring station, because I understand that they have to find somewhere which is A, close to the road, and B, area which is affected. So they were going away to look at that. So yeah, I'll leave it till July and I'll go back to them.
I would say, I mean, the first part they have basically done, in that they've told us where we can find the results of the previous surveys, and they've also said that the new one will be uploaded by the 30th of June once it's been submitted. So some of that information is there, but obviously the conversation is ongoing. Thank you for my find out.
Thank you very much. Okay, action report. So we move on to number 9, budgets, to receive the latest figures. Any comments, questions, etc.?
Received.
Received, lovely job, I like that one. Okay, then climate emergency action plan, to receive and discuss updates for the climate emergency action plan.
I have a question.
Okay, Councillor Schaefer, thank you.
So somewhere on there, it talks about local people and practical action, and it talks about the climate cafe.
I saw that.
Yeah. And I can't find it now, but it's on there. So has there been any, have there been any further meetings of it?
Next climate cafe will be on Saturday at Bourton Park.
This Saturday?
This Saturday, they're holding
Excellent.
a thing at Celebrate Brackley Day.
Thank you.
Councillor Stutford.
And I think just compliments with this plan, most of the stuff that is being moved forward, we ought to record our thanks to people. Well, we're not making particular comments around it, to be honest. But it is a sign of the work that's been done to now,
Yeah.
that the fact that we are in that position to move stuff forward. So I think we should record our thanks in the minutes for what's happened. And there'll still be areas where we wish to address, but lots of the stuff when we started it have actually
Agreed.
been moved forward. So that's a positive. So we should
Yeah.
record our
Thank you,
thanks.
councillor.
Yeah.
Yes, we can do that, please. John. Councillor
Yeah,
Bradley.
just the notes today, the flooding, I think that to commend the town clerk and the team for their response to the events. It obviously happened. Well, I mean, the storm was predicted, but I guess no one was probably imagined just how much of a storm it was going to be. I mean, it just stepped down. It's like someone just took a bucket. A very big bucket. I guess the question I've got is that some while ago you were treated to an excellent presentation. Today it was a very country, Akeley, Canal.
Terry Cabinet, the legendary Terry
The
Cabinet.
legendary Terry Cabinet, yeah. About the connectivity of the storm drains to the, what is it called? The kind of channel that goes down the side of the eastern bypass. And how there really ought to be some investigations about rejigging some of the drains on Lakes Hill particularly, to ensure the water where it ought to go. And I wondered if anything had happened about that. Have we as a town council been pushing Anglian Water to look again at this? Because obviously they put in the mitigation down, at the part in the village nearest the river, because of the flooding that happened there a few years ago. And that's obviously welcome. But my hunch is there's been some, flooding again today. Some of it is inevitable, although one has to wonder why places like Waterside and so on get flooded when there really ought to be adequate drainage. Maybe it's a freak event and therefore it's possible to plan with that. But I do think we ought to be constructing a short report to send to Anglian Water and say, what are you doing about this? We pay you a lot of money to look after the water courses in the town. And that includes, the exit of rainwater like this. Whatever's happening clearly, isn't working. And where's their investment strategy for the town?
John, do we have any update?
Well, I draw members to the report. Obviously, we have been county after the last period of flooding. We're not actively pushing Anglian Water, and to be honest, I'm not a drainage engineer to know what Anglian Water was for. I'd have to go, if this was before my time in this post, so I would have to go back and see where we were in the minutes on that one.
Terry made a very good presentation. Obviously, before your time there, but it's worth digging that out. It was very persuasive, and he's been doing his bit to contact Anglian Water because he has a keen interest in water courses. I don't know whether you got the contact Terry. You probably have, you do locate it on the agenda, but the information is there somewhere. I'm sure.
Did you want to talk about the flood as we talked it out? Did you want the members want to have a little recap of what's happened today from our point of view? Obviously, I'm sure we were all in town. We know how much water hit in one go. There was also quite a lot of wind going out and about. I went down to see people at Nelson Street at the bottom there who are a regular spot, and they brought up the issue of the drain on the corner there, which we all know was a problem.
Yeah.
In fairness to the drainage, I would say because we had that burst of wind through, every drain I've come upon is clogged up with leaves and branches because everything got ripped off the trees as that howls came through, and it was an extremely large amount of water in a very short space of time. So I think in the best of situations, there would have been overwhelming of the system anyway, but that's a different matter. As far as the team goes, We did get the green spaces team out with sandbags, but because of the bit of sucker flash flood, by the time we managed to negotiate the down on London Road, basically it was too late and the water had flooded through where it was going to flood through. But we did call round some, as part of our flood plan, we have a list of vulnerable residents that are within the flooding area. We've called round all of those. We've not notified of anybody vulnerable that is in need of help. And we have been in contact with civil contingencies up at Buckinghamshire as well, who have been helping at least get through to highways, because I know that there are a number of issues on the highways. They are the ones we were aware of. There is some crack road up on the entrance to Page Hill. There's a very bad drainage cover, wharf yard. That's all been reported. Our team have coned it as best we can, but obviously we're not the highways agency, so that needs dealing with. And I've been told that's on the list to be inspected tonight. And the road is sunk outside of the old jail, which was quite concerning. There's quite a significant amount of tarmac has dropped about half a foot. Again, I've asked for that to be inspected tonight.
Wow.
So the old jail had some leakage through, also stopped quite a lot of water in the office there. Building's been locked up, the alarm's set, it's all made safe. I'll contact Russell in the morning and see how he's getting on with getting that dried out. This is just my rough list. I understand, and this is all second-hand because I haven't spoken to Lace Hill directly, but I've been told they've emailed all the parents to say they'll be closed tomorrow because the water came through. Our own building, Lace Hill Sports and Community Centre, is closed tonight. We've had to cancel bookings because the water's come in through the roof. Not been in a position to fully evaluate that, so we've basically locked the building up, made it safe, and we'll get the Clean Spaces team to go and have a look in the morning about how that's happened. I suspect it's probably it's leaked in various places. It could well be that there's only one external hole, but then the water's got inside, it's found different ways down onto the floor. Far too early for me to be able to tell you anything more realistic about what's happened there. We've had reports of homes flooded on Western Avenue, Nelson Street. It got very tense at March Edge again, but they were prepared, so they told us that that's under control there as best it is. I know there's some issues down Chandos. Their gardens are quite low down, aren't they? So that's a problem spot. And I'm advised that BP, Sainsbury's, Tesco's and Waitrose, which I'm sure most people have seen on social media, have had issues as well.
Yeah.
The shops all along the top of Market Hill, so that was Boots, Tesco's, Costa, had problems, and that's leakages through the roof as far as I'm aware, rather than surface flooding. That's what I've been told. These went out to them, I've never been to them, so I can't say more than that, but that's the problem. And as best I can tell, the old jail is leakages through the building, it's not been flash flooding of the water. That's probably a very brief process of where we are, but we didn't enact the entire of our flood plan, just because it's not that sitting water kind of event. But we have checked in on the vulnerable people that we're aware of in the flood risk area, and we've got nobody that we've had to forward on to social services or make county aware of the further assistance.
Thank you for doing that.
Thank you so much. It was a bit unexpected, that one, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Just to add, I believe there was some flooding in Badgers, which is on social media. I saw it when I come out. I was going to, and thank you for what you've done today, but I was going to answer part of what John was saying before. Terry was talking to us about Stonish Bradford roundabout. What Terry was explaining to us is that if we were to divert to put into Stonish Bradford roundabout, what it would actually do is divert some of the storm water from Page Hill to go along the bypass along the gully on the other side, which would put it into the river on the outskirts of Buckingham. But presently, what's happening is it goes to the drain and goes down to the river and drops it the other side of the play area by March Edge. That's what Tony's going to do. Now, I have no confidence that we'll get a quick response, because I've just got a response to the correspondence in March to do with the proposals for the roundabout per se, which is to do, which should be provided to the planning committee. But so I think that we do need to be a little bit more proactive with this, because we've escaped, we will get another serious flooding event. And what Terry actually told us was really logical of a way of doing it. And John's thankfully raised it again, because we do need to start that investigation. And would like to propose that we, if John's happy with it, that we contact Terry for an update on what he believes needs doing, so we can actually start them conversations. Because if they are going to do work to that roundabout,
Yeah.
It would seem illogical when they're digging up that roundabout that they don't put the diverter in at that point to actually solve this problem. If Terry's, he seems to understand the flow of water quite well as a canal man. So I think Terry would be pretty accurate in his proposal. So I think if we get something from Terry so that we can pursue it, it'd be too late in 4 years' time if we have another flood and we haven't pursued it.
Yeah.
Yeah, thanks, Robert. Ravina?
Fine, can I just ask Claire, apart from the flooding and the water, because of the storm and the winds, there's quite a lot of very low hanging branches. When I drove here from home, it was not just behind people's gardens, but some even going up some of the roads, it looked like another few gusts and some of the branches can come in onto the road. So do we have anyone who's going to go, is that our area? No.
No, that's going to be, if it's over the road, then, and yeah, that's going to be one for highways. If there's anywhere specific that you think is dangerous,
Yeah.
I mean, if it's even really dangerous, it's a 999, if you think it's about to come down, but otherwise, fix my street. I would hope that county are fully aware of what's going on, and they should have their teams out and about doing inspections.
There was a tree, I don't know whether it was struck by lightning, because when it started, I was in Bletchley, Milton Keynes, and we had to drive back through all of this. It was horrific. And I think there was a tree which had been struck by lightning just near the entrance to Buckingham, because the tree had shattered like glass.
Oh.
The pieces were about that big all over the road. And the queue coming out of Buckingham as we were coming in, people were honking their horns, but obviously you don't know what they're saying because you can't see through the rain. And you're just trying not to get, too much to the side to get completely stuck in the water. And loads of cars had gone off the road because it was just too much. You couldn't see, and if anything went past you, it was it was just horrific. And the lightning was so close. I've never seen anything like it.
Yeah.
But the tree, it had fallen down onto the A41 and it was in pieces.
Wow.
A huge tree. So I imagine it had been struck by lightning.
Can I just go back to the drainage of the surface water? Something that I was told about by the guys that did the build at Clarendon House was when they were excavating the site, they came across this pipe and they put cameras down it. They didn't know what was going on with it. They put cameras up, they put them down it, couldn't decide what it was for. So they dug it up and then it rained. And that was when the whole site got flooded because the storm drain runoff from Addison Road and Merrimack Drive and all those properties going up Stratford Road goes under the BP through the wharf yard and then down and through underneath what is now Clarendon House, that site, and into the river.
Yeah, there's a big concrete.
So they did replace it. But yeah, there are probably anomalies like that all over the place. Whenever the system was put in, that was the end of the town, wasn't it? So that was like, yeah, that's fine. We'll just go the shortest way to do it. And the town has grown massively.
Yeah.
More roofs, more tarmac, etc. Okay, right. So if we can have a look at that as well, that'd be good. Councillor Willett.
Thank you. I was also going to mention there was a similar circumstance to what Ravina was mentioning, and that was on Western Avenue. There was a tree that was split.
It come down on somebody's car, and yeah.
Road was completely blocked. Nelson Street, I believe, there were people, shoving brooms down their corridors to get all the water out. It's quite a scene, but.
Yeah, okay. Thanks, Claire, for everything you and all the team have done. We move on then. Memorial testing at Brackley Road Cemetery update to receive a report from the Estates Administrator.
So, as members will recall from previous meetings, we started the latest round of memorial safety inspections at the cemetery at the beginning part of this year. It was a big team effort. We finally finished this first stage, which is the oldest section of the cemetery. And so the results are contained within the report. So we inspected 2,741 memorials, headstones. The larger headstones, so that's anything a metre and a half and above, were conducted by a specialist contractor. Serious. Of those inspections, 78 were category 1. So category 1 is essentially unsafe. Category 2 is unstable, but not in immediate danger. So we just flag those, photograph them, and check in a year's time. Category 3, good condition, noted, another 5 years time. Of those 78, we were quite quick in terms of contacting deed holders that we had on file and our team being able to make them safe. So that was 16 knocked off. But we are left with a number of memorials which are contained within the report that we are actively seeking the deed holders or relatives of to try and make permanent repairs to. Now, anything that's over 100 years old, the deed basically reverts back to the town council. So 21 of those are over 100 years old. This table that you have in the report is in our notice boards across town. It's been linked within the advertiser. It's across all of our social media pages. It's up at the cemetery. It's going into the next copy of the newsletter, link to anyway, and obviously it's on our website. It's within the library, and we are encouraging people to look at the list and discuss it, comment on it if you recognise any of the names, because people don't visit the cemetery that frequently, but they may have loved ones there that they are concerned about.
Councillor Shaker.
I would very much like to commend the team for the tremendous amount of work that's gone into not only, inspecting all of it, making it safe, but also communicating this. And I recommend that we note the report.
Yeah, indeed.
I think it was a very interesting list of names as well.
I'd just like to make a compliment because the first time we did couple testing in Buckingham, we were just, although we owned the land, we're not the burial authority, and the district council at the time went down and laid low end of graves down without consulting people. Consequently, we had the small hall absolutely packed with people in Buckingham, baying and angry and really livid because the communication didn't take place, which shows how good you've been in the fact that you're doing the communication, and we haven't got that amount of anger coming back at us because people are, maybe they're more aware of these things nowadays, but you must have touched all the people and they've been told. What happened last time? They went up there, many of them, to find their relatives' tombstones laid down with no consultation. So compliments to that, and I think it shows quality of the work that you do, because we haven't got a room full of people complaining.
Definitely. Are we happy to note that report?
Yeah.
No. So number 12, Paul. Sorry.
Sure, and I'm going to wave Andy down the other end here. I'm just noticing that quite a few of the headstones are not that old.
Yeah. Yeah.
Obviously, there was some that go back the last, 2 centuries ago and everything else, but there's some like 1979.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
not that long ago.
Yeah.
New ones are worse.
The Ford, to receive a report from the Estates Administrator. Another one.
Yes, so as you'll see from the report, it's another report to note the information and decide whether or not to proceed with this project. So members will recall this is quite going back some time when this was first proposed from a member on the previous committee. It originated from the Buckingham Society, and it was around seeking funding for the renovation of the wall that leads up Ford Street. To put in a bench fringed by grassy mound and wildflowers to pedestrians to sit near the mile of the river. So we've gone quite well with that. We've sort of spoken to contractors and got quotes in terms of what we need to do in order to extract the silt, which would actually have to be landfilled. It's all runoff from flooding that stored there. And the costs associated with that, we put in an application to the community board. And then it says in the report that we would need to match funding for that, and we would also need to evidence that this was something the community wanted as well, going back to the user survey that we did at Chandos Park. So again, just really referencing the information that we put in the report, whether or not members feel, given that we don't actually have, we haven't canvassed public opinion on restoration of the board, whether it's something we would want to proceed with, we would want to explore budgets.
Okay. Just further to that, this is not necessarily about removal of the silt, isn't about alleviating the flood risk. This is about making it a pretty site. One of my main concerns about this, and I was down there, I looked at it a couple of days ago, it's still part of the highway. You drive through it. So I'd be very reluctant to spend thousands of pounds making it look lovely, knowing that somebody is going to drive through it and has the right to drive through it.
Yes. Councillor Stritchfield.
Well, I was always thinking I could drive some sheep through it, as it was a droving area, and the Woolpack takes the name Woolpack from the sheep drove through it. I think that you've done a good job in exploring it. Buckinghamshire Council Community Board have turned us down flat for any money towards it. So I would say, after saying that, I think at some point, if there is something we can do with by way of something sympathetic, because if the mud is going to come out of the river again, but the next time the river floods, it will flow it out. And there are tracks for it. You can see where the vehicle's gone through, as the town clerk says, but it might be worth considering at a later stage where we go for one of the small grants, the community boards, which are about £1,000 if we needed to buy some plants, stuff to do it. But plants in the Ford have been part of the problem in the sense that we've had to take out the self-seeded willows, and I weren't too sure what we were going to be doing by spending money on somebody else's property, being the wall, which belongs to somebody else. And as the town clerk says, it is a public highway, and the best vehicle that ever went through it was the Buckingham Town Foot bus, which went through it once and floated down the river. They didn't anticipate it was flowing, but I think we've explored it enough, and we should not disregard it. And I think we should just at a future date look at the small grant.
Councillor Schaefer.
I would echo most of this, and my proposal was that we kick this in the long grass, I think is the technical term for this. So we leave this be for the time being.
Yeah.
For consideration in due course.
Yes.
Somebody wants to give us £100,000, we revisit it.
Councillor O'Donnell.
Yeah, I'm happy to go with recommendation.
Yeah.
Councillor Willett.
I'm happy to go with the recommendation. I would like to know what people's feelings are on this in the town, though. That's definitely something, in terms of canvassing public opinion for the restoration of the board. I'm not saying commit to it right now, as we've spent a lot of money on other projects this year, and we're in the middle of a recession, so.
Councillor.
I mean, certainly I picked up no indication from any of the social media posts I read or conversations I have with you face to face that there's any great interest in this, in prettifying this particular plot of land. But I do think one thing I've noticed, which seemed to sort of stop maybe around about the time of lockdown, I'm not sure even before then. So we don't seem to have any teams of people who are doing community service orders or the supervision of the relation service.
Okay, so that was something that was actually discussed at a previous meeting. I can't remember the exact detail, but it was actually costing us money to have people do that because of the supervision, etc. on it. Lee gave us a report.
Out money.
Yeah.
I would say the people who are doing it with the services will be paying for it, not us, but. if
Yes.
they were in the law, they should be paying for.
Well, I think that's beyond the remit of this community, really, John.
All right, I'll show up.
I'd just like to say it isn't our land, it belongs to Buckinghamshire Council. And if Buckinghamshire Council wish to allocate funds to doing it, it's within their legal responsibility.
Yeah.
to do so.
I would just say that any prettification, planting, whatever, as soon as we get a flood, it will be in Stony Stratford,
Yeah.
If not Bedford
on its way.
Therefore,
or King's Lynn.
So recommended that we note the report and agree not to proceed with this project.
agreed.
You vote on that.
That's unanimous.
Yeah. Okay, so we move on to railway walk conservation volunteers. It's not easy to say.
So members will recall at the last meeting, we discussed the fact that we were facing the end of the funding stream that we've received from the Heart of Bucks, which would be August of this year. And we didn't at that point have anybody that was interested in forming a management committee, so we were getting to the point where we were going to have to bring work back in-house. And the Trust of Conservation Volunteers, who are the coordinating organisation, have been granted £5,000 from the People Trust, which will now allow the Railway Walk Conservation Group to continue their sessions up to another 8 sessions until March of next year, which is great news.
Excellent.
It also means there may be some additional funding left to support some of the work of the river wardens, but that is to be discussed and how it can be allocated. You'll see from the report what this means in terms of the payments for any insurance and the sessions. So it's really just to note, and we will bring back any further updates as they arise.
Wonderful,
No,
Okay, Brackley Road Cemetery and Local Heritage List. To note a letter from Buckinghamshire Council regarding the Brackley Road Cemetery being added to the Local Heritage List. Thank you. That's what it says on the tin, really.
Noted.
just one question for you.
Okay.
It says, is there, we need to ask this question, this decision adding to, does it add any long-term financial considerations to our property? And if it does, we need to know what they are, what they might be. Because they've chosen to add this to the list and inform us that they've done it. So I think we do need to know that, because if there is a long-term cost, when I say that is if it means that those buildings have to be maintained to a certain surface going forward, that's a budgetary thing, and we need to actually be aware of that to make sure that we either budget for it. But that when would be a question of whether we can that'd be good enough reason to question the recommendation, which was noting it, but I didn't know whether there's a cost to us.
I think it's going to be a cost to us to maintain those buildings anyway.
Yes, Chairman, I agree, but what I'm saying is this wording being added to the list, whether that adds a further cost to us because the way that we deal with it.
Anything?
I talked it through with Steve, we couldn't think of anything obvious. I mean, to be honest, we, as it says, it's happened, they're telling us it's been done. And if we want to appeal it, we would need some new information or evidence to say why it's not a non-designated heritage asset. And I don't know what we could possibly put forward to say that it is.
We do it, but never.
We couldn't think of anything.
No. Well, you know, they do coming back in there, really, isn't it?
Great pre-listing.
Yeah. Monitor their buildings when they do it.
Yeah, I didn't pick up any. When I read through it.
Be interested to see what they put on Pooley's Tower, wouldn't it?
Oh, where?
Police Tower.
Oh, yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
okay, new cemetery. So received a verbal update from the town clerk.
I think members have probably guessed the fact that this verbal update is not good news. We were waiting upon the costings to come back from the cemetery design people that we've engaged. Unfortunately, they only got them to me on Monday. Lee's been away on holiday and I'm not happy to recommend them to you until Lee and I have had, he's the expert when it comes to trees and grounds and what costings are. And I'm not, so until he's back from holiday, we have the opportunity to properly go through it. It's too much money to do it on a wing and a prayer. But I would say I think it's probably okay. This causes us a problem because we do really want to push on. So depending on what comes back from Lee and whether or not he's happy with where we are, I might have to suggest to members that we look for a quick extraordinary meeting to discuss the plans only so we can move forward. Which I know is a bit of, you guys have to turn up for another night, but I can't think of any way of doing it without doing it properly.
That's fine.
It's important enough to work that.
Large amount of money.
Otherwise, the next one is the end of July. So if that's all right with members, Lee and I will pour over it and again bring Steve in as well. And if we are in a position we want to recommend the plans as is, then we'll call them extraordinary. If we need to throw things back to CDS and ask them to look at stuff again, then maybe July will be the date because that's just how it works.
Okay, yeah, thank you very much. Robin?
I don't think the committee needs to see this at this stage, but can I ask that we don't need to see it, but can I ask that the chair is briefed on it and the mayor briefed on it so that they're well aware of what it is. We don't, as committee, don't need to discuss it till it comes to committee, but I do think that they need to be aware of what it is. We're not discussing because we've come to you late. I don't think there's any, so that they're fully informed.
It's just the design and the list of prices. But until I've had a chance to properly sit with Lee and go, do we think that's realistic amount of money to spend on 16 trees? Do we think that's realistic amount to spend on that particular piece of tarmac? It's just a big long list of costs which we want to put up against the plan that we've got. And it might be that we feel that actually that's too much to spend on that asset, or we aren't happy that you budgeted enough there and we would like a bit more wiggle room, and we need to have that. At this stage, it's not a position to bring to you, which is fine.
Okay, thank you very much. Actions arising from full council. The discuss representation. Three orders minutes 1823.7.
Yes, it was resolved at full council that it would be wanted to this meeting to discuss whether you wish to appoint another tree warden.
We appoint another tree warden.
If somebody volunteers to be that tree warden.
That's the conversation, yeah.
Simple.
Who currently do we have? Tree
Robin's one, do you not?
I'm not supposed to be a tree warden. Ruth used to be a tree warden.
I have a little context around it. So tree wardens, we've got about 23 active tree wardens which are made up from volunteers throughout our community. We've had Sue and Margaret and Robin and other councillors that have attended previous events. I'm not sure it needs to necessarily be formalised as such that we have a council tree warden rep, because many of you turn up anyway to our tree planting events.
That was that we had a formal representative.
You might disagree, there's good reasons.
Do you want to find any of your colleagues?
Can I propose
Nice big tree.
we agree the recommendation and seek all council members be contacted because they're not all on the committee.
Councillor, the full council want you to do is to see if you can find somebody from this committee that would like to be a tree warden rep.
Put an amendment that we find somebody from a different committee and appoint them.
So you have to do is just to discuss it and see if there's anybody, and if there isn't, there isn't.
Anybody?
I'm not volunteering.
You sure about that?
I see no appetite for volunteering anybody here. I would suggest that we politely decline this invitation from the full council. And that it be an open invitation to all councillors to voluntarily attend these events as suggested by our estates administrator.
You're right.
Thank you.
Okay.
That's
Can
the
I
way
just
out of
ask
it.
how much of the time commitment it is?
No.
So if you would become a tree warden, you would get an email from me probably once or twice a year. Tree planting. So the next tree planting event is on.
Yeah, and then I'll say, did you email me? And you'll say, yeah, I did.
If you are particularly engaged, then you can designate an area of Buckingham, usually around where you live. And then Catherine will send you the email if there's a particular tree, like Whiteland's garden, that there's issues with and you may wish to go out and investigate that. But not all of our tree wardens do this. We have some very key members that correspond with Catherine on a regular basis about tree planting applications. The majority of our tree wardens are active in turning up on a regular basis to our tree planting activities every year and putting trees in the ground.
No,
Councillor Lewis.
no, it's once or twice a year, go ahead, sign me out.
Well volunteered, right? I second that, so
I don't believe we need to vote on somebody volunteering. That's not normally how volunteering works.
you formally appointed.
Okay.
Okay, excellent. So number 17, updates from representatives on outside bodies. Councillor Sturgebury.
Just to say that tomorrow you may, as councillors, encounter the same problems that I have, which is people being discharged from Milton Keynes Hospital, not quite making their way back into the community. I've tried questioning this in various places. I haven't yet got a substantial answer on where the responsibility really rests between Milton Keynes Hospital and adult social care. So I'm trying tomorrow to see whether I can move that forward at cabinet a little bit further forward, see if I can get someone to take ownership of our residents, constituents in Milton Keynes. I say this because I've dealt with several cases, and one of the cases they were in Milton Keynes Hospital for 5 months waiting for a placement, which if you've got a serious condition, it's awful. You might want, and also I note that they haven't moved forward with the dementia recommendations yet on dementia, which I think will bring, I'll give the councillors opportunity to look at, because I think something that we all get questioned about with vulnerable members of the community, and we need to know what the view and recommendations on dealing with it in Buckinghamshire Council. I'm aware that on this week, the Overview and Scrutiny Committee of Buckinghamshire, Bob, will be looking at the integrated care package, which is linked very much into this subject matter, and it's looking at its 5-year plan for health. Now, what that actually means for us is to be determined, but we do need to start to, if nothing hasn't taught us, our silence on health hasn't actually produced anything. We kept running away with wanting to discuss doctors' practices to get in the real big things around that. So it isn't all about doctors' practices when it comes to health. So I think that we do need, or I will be bringing some information to Chair and the clerk to see whether it's something that we should do to inform. But I do think the discussion around dementia is something that I think we ought to take. There are many councillors who attended many different events and have worked with the community on that from Buckingham Town Council. And we also, many of them took the training, didn't you?
Yeah.
I mean, I must admit, I didn't take it, so I'm not claiming any credit in that respect, but I was for the dementia friend. And it's something that we need to be around. And I think those things around health, because it's relevant to this committee, because its remit has got health on it. Those reports are available if you want to spend about 4 hours reading them. I have. I'll read them again, but I think the integrated, as I said, the integrated care strategy, that's going to be how one service locks into another to get our patients in Thames Valley, Oxford, everywhere, actually the care they need. So it's a real big thing. And the 5-year plan, we might get some information out of that to know that things. I am aware that a colleague will be attending that meeting on Thursday morning to question. Funny enough, we've had this discussion around Section 106s and how vision of health centres and stuff, not just a Buckingham centric question. Some people in South Buckinghamshire are also experiencing the same similar types of uncertainties as we are. So that may come out of that, but I think that's enough. I've got to concentrate on health because that relates to where we are.
Thank you very much, Councillor Sturchman.
Thanks, Robin.
Buckingham Community Wildlife Project. We received notes to a meeting held on the 22nd of February, discussed whether to appoint an additional member to the committee. I've stepped down from this because the meetings are at 6 o'clock. I can't get home and get sorted in time to attend. So do we have anybody that would be interested in sticking up on that? I'm not sure whether I think I've got no, I don't know. My name isn't on the list anymore, I don't think. Anybody interested?
When's the next one?
Does it say?
19th of October.
That's the previous one.
21st of June.
June.
That's quite close.
Yeah, 21st of June.
Yeah.
But it'll be remote.
Okay.
Well, it looks and it looks like the meeting lasted just over an hour, the last one.
You're saying it's on Teams or Zoom?
Well, whichever.
Can I get back to you about
Yeah,
that one?
yeah.
Because it also falls on the last day of the school year,
Yeah.
so kids are home early, so.
21st of June.
Oh, is it June?
Yeah,
Yeah.
so that's
Let me just double check.
Yeah.
July
July,
the 25th,
yeah.
July's the,
Yeah.
isn't it?
Yeah.
next Wednesday. I think.
Next Wednesday.
Yeah.
I propose that we allow the chair and the deputy chair to discuss it outside the meeting.
I was just going to say,
Yeah.
if you'd like to message the office.
Yeah,
let us know.
I'll do
Thank you
that.
very much. Excellent, thank you, Ravina. And then we go to any press releases?
Not from our briefing.
Yeah, I think that it would be useful to do a press release around the discussion we've had tonight around the work that the town council has done in supporting the flash flood, because I think it's happened in the town. Officers have been out there and done things to represent us, and I think it's important that we are seen that we've actually done that. So I think that's an important press release because it will be current on social media. It's a big issue. I think the other one I think we ought to be thinking about doing a press release is I'm going to say what it was now. It's on
Are we
the
having a press release about the cemetery? It's already done, isn't it? Yeah, excellent.
yeah. Well, I think we ought to either do it. We had a discussion tonight on the agenda about but not a proposal, so I'll take it under advisement about the proposal for the new in the tennis purpose. That's
too early for that.
That's too early, so we should leave that. Too early for
I
that.
think it's stick, I
But I
think.
do think out of everything we've done tonight, we need to talk about the
Yeah.
current issue in the town tonight.
If you could do that, thank you very much.
Get something out of the flooding as a whole.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you very
It
much.
shows your current
I don't have any announcements. The date of the next meeting is Monday, the 31st of July. I'd like to declare this meeting closed and we will now go into private session.
To resolve, so,
Oh, right, sorry, Phil.
we need to resolve if we want to go into private session.
Yeah.
Reasons that are, so the
Yeah.
recommendation that we go to private session.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay.
I propose that we recommend that going private.
Seconded, agreed.
Thank you.
But in that case, I'm getting end on